And take it away, Thom.
Stephen, I don't know how to thank you in advance. I have my own timer, so you don't have to worry about that. I'm just grateful to be here. I really am. My name is Thom. I am alcoholic. My sobriety date is February 10, 1992. I do have a sponsor. I'm actually back with my first sponsor for when I got sober this time in 1992. Her name is Kristen A. She's got 44 years of sobriety. Because my sponsor passed away in August of COVID. And yeah, so, but I'm in good shape. I'm in good hands. Now, I was thinking, because I was meditating earlier today, like, God, please don't make me say something that's going to like kill somebody. Please don't make me say something that's going to give somebody a prejudice against Alcoholics Anonymous. Please don't let me make this about me too much. Please help me carry this message, not my message. And I was going to do something actually out of the book. If any of you have a big book, I would grab it. Because what we're going to do today in a little bit after I qualify for you, I think we're going to have a little bit of fun. And I'll explain that in a minute. Okay. But I want to tell you, thank you. Yes, Stephen, I do. I maintain and write a Zoom security guide that helps groups around the world secure their Zoom meetings. And I've been very lucky with that. It's been going viral. The support and love has been amazing. I stopped counting the emails I got in with questions about it and requests for help since February at 70,000. I think that's enough to say that it's a success and I don't need to count anymore because it isn't about that. And I'm just grateful that I could do it because I've been in computer security for many years before I got sick. I have multiple sclerosis. I have complex regional pain syndrome, which is when your sympathetic nerve system, which controls pain response, blood flow, and immune response, kind of blows up and short circuits and sends random signals to my brain. And then my brain sends back random responses, and I feel that pain as if it was real. 24 hours a day. I live in a lot of pain. Those of you in the room that might have heard me speak yesterday, I was in the throes of a pretty good breakout of the MS, but I had to just kind of stumble my way through that share. I do feel much better today. So briefly about myself, I am son of two immigrants from Austria. They came over separately because they couldn't afford to come over together. Both alcoholic, both are passed. One died in 2005, the other one in 2006. I don't know hardly anything about my family beyond my parents. They would never talk about it other than to tell me that my mother's family in Klagenfurt, Austria, which is in the mountains in Austria, and my father's family in Vienna, Austria, during World War II, both sides pretty much got slaughtered by the Germans for various things. My father's family were into politics, so they were against Hitler that way. And my mother's family were running escape routes for people, and they were running something called the Kindertransport, trying to help children get out and into safe houses in places like England, Switzerland, France, well, at least until France was taken over, et cetera, et cetera. Crazy story, and they would never really talk about it except one time each. My father on his deathbed, and my mother sat me down for 1 hour one day, and when I visited her after not seeing her for 12 years because I was estranged from her, and I had to get sober. I'm not going to tell a lot of the details of my story right now. There are other talks, and you may hear me again because I've got a gift that I'd like to give you guys because I want to talk about something that I became the moderator and the steward, I suppose, of a group called AA History Lovers. Started in 2001 by a woman named Nancy Olson, who is very instrumental in something called the Hughes Act, which is an outside issue to Alcoholics Anonymous, but it's very, very impactful on what's happened to us because it has to do with treatment centers and the way the government funds them and subsidies and stuff like that. And if you ever want to look it up, the Hughes Act. But when she passed, she turned it over to a man named Glenn Chestnut, who, if you know anything at all about AA history, you've heard of this man. He's written 16 books, and he ran something called Heinz Foot, and he worked closely with William White and a bunch of other people. William wrote the quintessential book on the history of recovery, and they wrote a bunch of books on Alcoholics Anonymous. history, and things like that. Well, when Glenn got ill last year, he asked, of all people, he asked me if I would take over AA History Lovers, which was now floundering. It was on Yahoo groups, and Yahoo was shutting those down. So I was basically taking over a sinking ship, and I didn't know what I was going to do yet. But what I did was I put it on, I split it into 2 platforms. I took the classic version, which is heavily moderated, very academic, so that people can go back and search the old messages and get the information as we uncover, discover, and document. Instead of discard, we document AA history. So people study it. So that is on a website, which I can give the address later, and also on Facebook. We created one that's a little more loose, and there's people here that are on that group now, and we have a lot of fun, and there's people that contribute all kinds of really interesting factoids and documents and stuff from around the world. We got old pamphlets from Australia. We got histories from here, old papers from here, letters from there. I mean, it's an incredible group, and all you got to do is search for AA History Lovers on Facebook. We've got over 3,600 members so far since I started it in January. So I thought, well, how about a little bit of AA history? How about we tell a little bit of a story? Because I was taught something by a couple of my sponsors. First sponsor, my very first ever sponsor, was a man you may not have heard of. His name was Sandy Beach, and he has a talk called Drop the Rock that some people use as a title for a book, and now they think that that's what it means, but they don't have anything to do with each other. So if you think you're reading Sandy, you're not. Go back and find the talk. It's easy to find online. Incredible talk. And he's got all kinds of other talks. He did a lot of workshops and a lot of history. Well, he taught me through the 12 and 12 and through various literature how to respect the AA literature. And he taught me, Thom, the reason you got to understand the AA literature at almost a master's degree level, if you want to survive long-term in Alcoholics Anonymous, is because a lot of the things that people say in meetings is total BS. A lot of people put out a lot of things that may be great advice in the real world, but they're not Alcoholics Anonymous. And sometimes, Thom, those things get very popular. And sometimes people misunderstand things, but since so many people are saying them, we start to think that it's gospel. But see, AA has something to protect us from that. It's called the minority opinion. You could tell a sick group from a healthy group by how much they rely on minority opinions, views, and how much they allow the minority opinions to actually speak during their meetings or business meetings. And that's at any level in Alcoholics Anonymous. But what I was taught was how to read the big book the way it was intended. And it's very, very different from the way we're reading it today, because it's so easy, because what we have here, this is a platform we're on right now that was mentioned for the first time in our literature in 2001, right? When the 4th edition came out, and Stephen showed that paragraph where we're talking about modem to modem, and that's still true. This phone has a modem in it. Your phone does too. Your computer has a modem. The router in there has a modem built in. It's connected to the wall or your satellite or whatever you're using. These are all modems. So we are really modem to modem right now. So that is a vision that they put out in 2001 that has very much come true. And it's going to be exciting to see where this platform goes. Now, this isn't going to replace physical meetings when all this outside issue stuff is over. Of course not. But this has been here since at least since the late 1980s, because I've been online doing what I call digital AA since the late 1980s. I first started sponsoring digitally in the early 90s, because I have been fortunate enough to have a punk rock band that was actually doing really well. I started it in sobriety so that I could take out my angst on an audience that would pay me to do it, rather than throw chairs in Alcoholics Anonymous meetings. My sponsor was like, Thom, those aren't your chairs to throw. Please stop. And I was so enraged. I couldn't. You said something I didn't like. You didn't follow the narrative of what I think a meeting should sound like. I would literally cuss you out and even maybe throw something at you. I mean, I was out of control, but they didn't throw me away. In Los Angeles, there's a group. It's the oldest meeting in Los Angeles that's still going on. It's called Arlington Beginners. And I used to go there and hear the circuit speakers they would come through. And if a speaker said something, often I would do this. If a speaker said something that was interesting or weird to me, and not the normal rhetoric that all the speakers are saying, all the nice, happy, feel-good stuff, I would go up to that speaker and say, hello, my life is worth saving. Will you please teach me more of that? And I would work with them when they would let me, right? And sometimes they'd say no. And so over the years, I've collected, I collect circuit speakers like some people collect stamps as sponsors. And I've been sponsored by many, many people that when I work with people now, I could just send them, you want to hear your grand sponsors? Here's a pile of speaker tapes. Here's Ted, here's Earl, here's Johnny, here's this, here's that. And these are all people I've approached and learned something from. And what I'm going to share with you tonight, if you'll appease me, is I'm going to share something from chapter 11, A Vision for You. Okay? We're going to do in the time that I've got, and I don't know why my timer stopped, but that's okay. I can just go by the regular clock here. It shows that I've got, whatever. I'll just look at the clock. I'm going to go through the chapter and I'm going to show some parts of it that I learned that when we read it, we just kind of skip over, don't really think about it because, hey, we're alcoholics. I don't know about you, but I'm always thinking about me anyway. And if I am thinking about you, oftentimes I'm thinking about, well, what can I get from you for me, right? Because I still have that alcoholic mind and I catch myself all the time, which is why I have to do step 10 all the time. And in step 11, I'm basically begging God, please, God, don't make me that kind of person today so that I can be of maximum service. And in that meditation, at first I was thinking, I'll talk about something in the family afterward but it dawned on me because my wife and I on Christmas Eve, we're going to do a workshop together where we're going to talk about how we work the traditions and steps in our marriage. And we're going to back it up with the big book. But it hit me. Why don't I talk about A Vision for You? This is a box set right here that I have. See that? Joe and Charlie, but there's, what? Is that a misprint? Joe and Charlie? No, it isn't. This is one of the only known times I know of where both Joes and Charlie did a workshop. And this is like one of the things I'm planning on making available on A History Lovers soon. But the reason I'm bringing this up is because when Joe and Charlie, or Joe and Charlie, in this one case, when Joe was training Joe to replace him, see, so this was a beta version of, it's kind of cool, actually. No one's ever really heard this. Not many copies of these are out there, but I'm going to make it available. Don't worry. They covered usually up to chapter 6, and then they mentioned some stuff about chapter 11 to close, to be nice and spiritual, on Sunday morning. But I'm going to take you into chapter 11 in a way that I think is going to be a bit shocking because for me, this changed the way I saw the big book forever. It changed the way I read the big book and the rest of it, and it changed the way I understand the big book in a pretty major way. If you don't want to hear anything that might change your view of what the big book and how it reads so that you might understand it better, then tune me out now. But I'm going to show you a few things that prove that the big book was designed to be a sponsor. So when they say sponsorship isn't in the big book, that's funny. We have a chapter called Working with Others. What could that possibly be about? And then it says that chapter is entirely devoted to step 12. And then after that, we have 3 more chapters, one to why, up to called The Family Afterward, and one written by a man named Hank Parkhurst called Two Employers, that are all sponsor manuals. They all have ideas, and those chapters, I call them the Teflon chapters because newcomers bounce right off of them. There's no reason to read those 3 chapters when we're still self-centered, when we haven't done the steps yet, because they're not about us. So we like to stick in the early chapters. Book studies usually are nice and full until we get right to the part about where you got to write an inventory. And then all of a sudden it's like a ghost town, right? As soon as it becomes something, we just, so, it is what it is. But A Vision for You is a most incredible chapter Before the book came out, they sent an original manuscript copy of it to Charles Towns from Towns Hospital. Some of you may have heard about him from Bill's story. He sent a copy to the American Medical Association to try to get their blessing and maybe, get a nice referral or word that they could put in the book before it came out. Well, it took them 6 months to get an answer back, and the review they gave was scathingly bad. Horrible. They basically said this is just junk science. There's nothing to it, AMA has since changed their tune, obviously. So the people who wrote this book originally had, and that's just an example of some of the absolute hell they had to go through just to get this thing out because of the amount of prejudices against this idea that people could get sober based on nothing more than a spiritual experience. And it was so confusing that back then they had to actually write Appendix 2 in later printings, which we now know, but it defines a spiritual experience as a personality change, which is very secular, a personality change sufficient to bring about recovery from alcoholism. Okay, so that's really all we're talking about. Now, I'm going to literally have to read from this book, and I find it interesting how, people come to AA and they go, oh my God, he's ready for the book. He's going to start preaching. No, all I'm trying to do is share something, and I'm trying to use the book to back it up so that A, that it isn't really coming from me, and B, so I don't get it wrong. I don't want to misquote it. I'm simply trying to share something I discovered that is absolutely beautiful and has changed the way I see Alcoholics Anonymous. This may touch you. This may upset you. I don't know. I'm not trying to upset anybody or offend anybody, but damn it, what are we here for if we're not trying to share our experience, our strengths, and our hope? And if a vision for you is not a chapter about hope, then what is it? And what's really interesting is that everything in it has not only come true, but it is still coming true. So I would like to take you through a few things. I take you first to page 162. This book, and this is probably the most important thing I ever learned about the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. The book, everywhere, the entire book from cover to cover, assumes that the reader is alone. It does not assume that you have a sponsor. It doesn't assume you have a group. It doesn't assume you have a meeting. It can't. There weren't even 100 people in the entire world that were in the fellowship of what is now called Alcoholics Anonymous when this book was published. There was one meeting a week in Akron, Ohio, and one meeting a week in New York. And the word meetings only appears once in the first 164 pages of the big book, and it's in this chapter, and it's only in passing. So the book does not assume we have what we have now. So it's nobody's fault, and it's just something we just have to talk about, which is why I decided to do this talk tonight, that we have this kind of a disconnect in what the book was trying to say and the world the book was in when it was first published, and the world as it is now, where alcoholism as a disease is now accepted by the AMA. People do understand that AA is a valuable thing. No one has come up with something better than Alcoholics Anonymous yet, or we wouldn't be doing this. We would go be doing that, right? There may be compliments to it out there, but they're all outside issues. We have traditions for that. But the fact is, we're here and we're strong. And even when something crazy like what's going on in the world happens now, look what we did. We made lemonade out of it. 274 people from all around the world having a mini international convention using technology. How incredible is that? Back then, every little thing that we take for granted today was a dream to them. That's why the chapter is called A Vision for You. It was a hope and a prayer that maybe someday every alcoholic who wants help can find a meeting or a group or a fellowship at their destination, even if they're traveling. That has since come true. I do security at a meeting in the Canary freaking Islands, okay? Out in the middle of nowhere off the coast of Africa. I go to meetings all over the world, and I don't mean strangest places, strange to someone who would never leave their neighborhood, but places that are just absolutely fantastic. And you know what's cool? The message is the same. And I was able to travel physically around the world when I was able to with my band. Wherever I was, there was an AA meeting and a group. And I always felt at home, even when they didn't speak my language. I still knew what they were saying. I knew who was in pain. I knew who was happy. I knew what they were talking about. I felt it in my heart of hearts, just being there. And that's a worldwide phenomenon now that we never had the connections to until now. You see, I don't think we're realizing just how powerful this platform really is. It's connecting the fellowships that, because of oceans, because of borders, because of this, because of that, have all been disconnected in their own little islands, their own little bubbles, including the US and Canada. We are now able to reach, and you are able to join us as we literally melting pot this whole thing into what could potentially grow into a worldwide single fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous. Because we now have the technology to do it. Wrap your head around that. Isn't that incredible? Look where they started. Look what it says. Bottom of 162. Thus we grow, and so can you, though you be but one man with this book in your hand. We believe in hope. It contains all you will need to begin. So it assumes you're one man, and it also says we hope it contains all you will need. That's sponsorship. The book alone should be enough to save you, is the way that they wrote this. Okay. Fortunately, we have all these new tools, and we have sponsors, we got meetings, we got all that. That's all great, but it's built on top of this. I'm talking about this didn't exist back then. And then it says, to prove again that the book assumes you're alone, it says, we know what you were thinking. You're saying to yourself, I'm jittery and alone. Alone. See, I couldn't do that, but you can. You forget that you have just now tapped a source of power much greater than yourself. To duplicate with such backing what we have accomplished is only a matter of willingness, patience, and labor. You see that? Now, let's back up to page 152. Paragraph 1. We have shown how we got out from under. Who are we? We're the ones who wrote the book. And how did we do that? By telling our stories. You say, yes, I'm willing. But am I to be consigned to a life where I shall be stupid, boring, and glum, like some righteous people I see? I know I must get along without liquor, but how can I? Have you a sufficient substitute? Yes, there is a substitute, and it is vastly more than that. It is a fellowship in Alcoholics Anonymous. Notice the tense of the next sentence. There you will find. The book assumes you haven't found it yet. There you will find release from care, boredom, and worry. Your imagination will be fired. Life will mean something at last. The most satisfactory years of your existence lie ahead. Thus, we who wrote the book find the fellowship, and so will you, the single alone reader of the book. How is that to come about, you ask? Where am I to find these people? The book assumes you haven't found them yet. You're going to meet these new friends in your own community. Near you, alcoholics are dying helplessly like people in a sinking ship. If you live in a large place, there are hundreds, high and low, rich and poor. These are future fellows of Alcoholics Anonymous. Among them, you will make lifelong friends. You will be bound to them with new and wonderful ties, for you will sponsor them. You will escape disaster together, and you will commence shoulder to shoulder your common journey. See, the book wants you to do what's in it, and then it wants you to teach it to somebody else. If that isn't sponsorship, what is it? Then you will know what it means to give of yourself, that others may survive and rediscover life. You will learn the full meaning of love thy neighbor as thyself. And then the next two paragraphs are mind-blowing to me. It may seem incredible that these men are to become happy, respected, and useful once more. How can they rise out of such misery, bad repute, and hopelessness? The practical answer is that since these things have happened among us who wrote the book, they can happen with you, lone reader of the book. Should you wish above all else and be willing to make use of our experience, we are sure they will come. The age of miracles is still with us. Our own recovery proves that. Our hope is that when this chip of a book is launched on the world tide of alcoholism, defeated drinkers will seize upon it to follow its suggestions. It's meant to be the sponsor. Back then, many, we are sure, will rise to their feet and march on. They will approach still other sick ones, and fellowships of Alcoholics Anonymous may spring up in each city and hamlet, havens for those who must find a way out. In the chapter Working with Others, you gathered an idea of how we approach and aid others to help. When people say promotion is bad inside Alcoholics Anonymous, that's not what the 11th tradition says. It says our public relations policy is based on attraction rather than promotion. We promote ourselves every time we share a meaning. Either I'm promoting myself as sponsor material, or I'm promoting myself as a newcomer that needs an awful lot of help, or I'm promoting myself as a bleeding deacon, or I'm promoting myself as something. But when we're asked to talk and we're asked to speak, of course we're promoting ourselves. That's what this is all about. It's the whole reason we have meetings, is everybody gets their turn to tell their story, which is promoting themselves. It's promotion. I'm promoting myself. Maybe you want what I have. How are you going to know that if you never hear me tell you about me? See, history geeks in the room that haven't yet found AA history lovers, you just hit a gold mine, because you're going to have a lot of fun, you see? And those of you who don't care, at least maybe you'll learn. And that's fine. Each their own. Some people are into general service. Some people like to make coffee. You know, we all have our roles and we all have our likes and dislikes. Everybody's equal in Alcoholics Anonymous. That's what's beautiful about it. There's no authority, just servants, trusted servants, and untrusted ones sometime. But I'm not going to get into that right now. You see, this chapter right here, and there's more, but I'm going to stop there when it comes to that, because oh, and this is my 1935 Buffalo nickel that I have taped in here. This is the one that Bill used in that payphone at the Mayflower Hotel, I believe. Prove me wrong. Prove me wrong. So I have that, and that's right in the story. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to give you guys some actual data out of this chapter. Now, this is being, my understanding is we're being recorded right now, which is why I'm kind of going fast. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to give you some of the data as a historian that I have, that you can maybe later listen to the recording, write in your margins. Don't worry about it. Just kick back and enjoy and listen while I give you some of the actual people they're talking about in this story, okay? We're going to go through in this chapter, I mean. Let's see here. All right, now, I'm going to go a little fast because it's a recording, so you can just pause it. When they talk about the four horsemen on 151, that comes from the book of Revelations, chapter 6, paragraphs 2 through 8. So if you want to look that up, you can look that up. Terror, bewilderment, frustration, and despair. My notes are terror that we are out of control. True for me. Bewilderment, and how I got drunk again. Frustration, that willpower won't work. And despair, that I'm ever going to rise above this problem. And that's hell. That's hell. At the bottom, it says, as ex-problem drinkers. In the first 11 printings of the book, in the first edition, it said ex-alcoholics. Just a bit of trivia. They changed it. Nobody knows why. Let's see here. Oh, on 152, I wanted to just mention when it says you're going to meet these new friends in your own community, what it's basically saying in summary, my understanding is that it's saying your fellowship in Alcoholics Anonymous is going to be created from the people that you help. In other words, get the program. Then you got people, sponsors, your posse holding this hand, right? And when you go get sponsees and you're holding their hand, now your hands are full and you don't have a free hand to pick up a drink. And that's the whole idea behind Alcoholics Anonymous. Learn how to do this deal, teach this deal, and now I don't have a free hand to pick up a drink. It's a beautiful thing. And this is saying that's how we do it. We create the fellowship. And I have learned in my 28 years of recovery that that is still true. The people that are in my life long term still to this day are typically people that I've either helped in some way or sponsored. Why? Because I guess they have some pieces of the program that was freely given to me that's working. I don't know. I don't know why that is scientifically. I just think it's weird and interesting, so I mentioned it. But that's what that's basically saying. Also, I said on 153, we approach and aid others to health. You know, that's promotion. We approach and aid others. You know, a guy sitting in a corner, a girl sitting in the corner, some sick alcoholic at a meeting, and, you know, what are we going to do? Wait for them to get the stones to walk up to us and ask for help? You know, are we going to let them just walk out the door? Is that really good 12-stepping? I don't think so. I think we have to look for those people and we have to reach out our hand. We are responsible for that. And we have to say, hey, don't leave. Come on. Let's talk. Or let me listen. On 154, just in case you want the note, one dismal afternoon, Bill paced a hotel lobby. That lobby was the Mayflower Hotel. The date was May 11th, 1935. Bill had 5 months sober when the story was told about him at the Mayflower Hotel. And he actually, when he selected a church at random, he actually went down the list until he got to the last name on it. He actually went all the way down. The last name, because it was alphabetized, was Reverend Walter Tunks, Tunks. So he made approximately 13 calls, according to Bill, in a letter that's in the archives that I read one time. Dr. Bob's last talk, by the way, claims different. Dr. Bob also claimed a few things different, like his sobriety date. He says it was June 10th, 1935 in his story. That's actually impossible, and I can prove that, and you can too. All you got to do is look this up. The AMA convention he supposedly went to in 1935 didn't start until June 10th. It ran from June 10th to June 13th. So how did he go to something that didn't happen yet, get drunk, ride a train all the way back to Ohio, get drunk in Cuyahoga Falls, and have Ann and Bill go scoop him up and sober him up before the convention he went to even happened? So there's actual proof that the date of Alcoholics Anonymous' actual founding is probably somewhere between June 16th and 17th. And that's okay. We're human beings. We started this thing. And when the majority rules and everybody just signs on to that, the truth just kind of goes out the window, which is the point I was trying to make and how important the minority opinion is. Somebody's got to carry the message or we'll lose our history entirely by watering it down. Now, at the bottom of 155, being intrigued, however, he invited our friend to his home. That was Bill. He ended up staying with Dr. Bob 3 months. And at this, I have my note here. Oh, I already explained that note. That was the sobriety date thing. The AMA convention happened from June 10th to June 14th, and the train takes 2 days from Ohio to New Jersey. So do the math. It's impossible that we started on June 10th. Anyway, let's see here. On one, there's some actual data, and I know I got just enough time to give you this information. On 158 at the bottom, there's a devil may care young fellow mentioned in there. That man is AA number 4. His name was Ernie Galbraith, Galbraith. He was 30 years old, and he eventually married Dr. Bob's daughter against Dr. Bob's wishes. Dr. Bob hated his guts. But that's okay. Oh, and his story in the first edition was called The 7-Month Slip. So if you want to read about Ernie, that's his story. On 159, it says, a year and 6 months later, these three that had succeeded with 7 more. It was Bill, Bob, and Bill Dotson, the man in the bed. Those 7 more are, I'm just going to read them out because it's a recording. You can peel them off later. Ernie Galbraith, sobriety date of 9/35. His story, the 7-month slip. Phil S., 9/35. He was the first AA court case that was ordered to AA by a court. Man named Thom Lucas, his sobriety date was either November 35 or December 37, depending on who you ask. And his story was called My Wife and I. Paul Stanley, April of 1936. His story was called Truth Freed Me. Joe Doppler, April of 1936, Doppler, his story, The European Drinker. And Walter Bray, Bray, February of 1936, his story was called The Backslider. And in New York, there were 4. There was Fitz Mayo, Mayo, October 1935, his story, Our Southern Friend. He's also talked about in the first 164. Hank Parkhurst, November 1935, his story was called The Unbeliever, and he actually wrote chapter 10 of our big book, To Employers. William Ruddle, his sobriety date, depending on who you ask, was 11/35 or 1/37. His story, A Businessman's Recovery. And Myron Williams, April 1936, his story was called Hindsight. Now, on 159, it says something very interesting. It says, these grew in numbers. They experienced, right before that last paragraph, they experienced a few distressing failures, but in those cases, they made an effort to bring the man's family into a spiritual way of living, thus relieving much worry and suffering. The way that it was designed, we're supposed to try to 12-step the family too. Now we have Al-Anon, we got Alateen, we got all this other stuff, but it is our job as sponsors, if we're sponsoring a member who has a family, to eventually, when the time is right, let them know that there are avenues of help that they can have too. Now, we don't say it more than once. We just plant a seed. We're not trying to sell anything, right? But we're supposed to, according to the big book, give them that information. Alcoholism is a family disease, according to that fellowship across the hall, after all. So that's just something. See, the point I'm trying to make here is, and this is what I'm going to close with, is that this book was written in the hopes that what we have would happen. And it has in spades. And the fourth, all the way up through the 4 to the 4th edition. We even got Digital Alcoholics Anonymous now. I don't call it virtual AA because the word virtual means fake. So I avoid that word. We're not fake. We're real people. And we want to be real careful that we don't make newcomers think or allow them to think that this is somehow secondary to a physical meeting, that physical meetings are somehow better. They have their pluses and their minuses. Physical meetings are great. You want hugs? Great place to go to get them if you're by yourself and you're on this. But you're also in a bubble. You don't have the opportunity to hear the different viewpoints from around the world that this gives you. So there's advantages to both platforms, right? So when we get the old ones back, I hope we don't drop this one completely. Even though it's been around forever, it's never been this big. I would say before February, before I wrote the Zoom security guide at first, and my first release was February, I would say 95% or so of the people in Alcoholics Anonymous never tried an online meeting. I can safely say now that I think about 95% of the people in Alcoholics Anonymous have tried at least one online meeting, and that's incredible. Think about the shift. However, that comes with problems. It was mentioned at the very beginning, and this is what I'm going to close with, because you know what? It's never about me anymore, man. I'm not a selfish bastard anymore. I think about others, and I am really concerned about GSO right now and their finances. They are dipping very deep into their prudent reserves because they thrive on the literature, and we're just not buying it. We're just not buying it. And a lot of the online groups, they have a Venmo or whatever, but they're not really collecting like they used to. And if we let GSO starve, and this also goes to all of you in different countries, you've all got the same problem in your local world service organizations. We have to think about that. So my two closing messages, and I hope you enjoyed what I showed you. I mean, there's more. I could do a workshop on this that could last hours, but the two main things that I'd like to leave you with that are complete aside from that is, number one, please, if you have anything you can do to help GSO, including carrying the message like Stephen did, that GSO needs money right now really desperately. Because if they go bankrupt, if they go under, what are we going to do? We got to have them. So see what you can do about that, right? And the second thing is we have to be very careful what we're telling newcomers in these meetings. If we start to talk about how the physical meetings are somehow better, you can say you love them more. That's fine. I'm not telling you what to say or what to think. I'm just saying, can we please consider the message we're carrying to the new people who only have this right now due to the circumstances that we're in. This is their only exposure. And there are people I know with 9 months of sobriety, and they've never been to a physical meeting. So no one can tell me this is virtual. No one can tell me this is fake. Their sobriety is also real. So please, let's figure out how to embrace this platform 1,000%. And let's try to sweep aside prejudice like the book asks us to do. I counted them 9 times. And let's see if we can maybe, really come together on this as a planet and take AA to the next level while not leaving behind our history, not leaving behind what we were, and not giving all that up when we do get it all back. And we will eventually. Let's see if we can grow AA into the worldwide fellowship, a vision for you only hoped it could be when it said, it is our hope that when this book is launched on the world tide, world, not US, not Canada, world tide of alcoholism. It was always the founder's dream that this would become a worldwide fellowship. Now, if we can find unity under the traditions as a worldwide fellowship, imagine how many people we could help and how many people we could reach. Unbelievable. I can barely wrap my head around it. It's fascinating to me. And I hope that I was able to carry some sort of message. I hope I didn't upset too many people that were expecting the same run-of-the-mill speaker meeting. I'm not slighting anything. Leslie's talk last week, amazing. Every talk you guys have on having just incredible speakers. And next week's talk, I don't know who it is, but I already know Stephen's got good taste and he's going to find somebody great for you to hear. And I just hope that maybe our little fun that we had this week in Gratitude Week and all that did something to let you see the big book in a slightly different way so that when you read it now, you understand that it was talking to a different world. But since the vision for you has come true, it still applies. It's why we don't need to change it. But now at least you'll understand the context better when you go back to those early chapters and read them because they're all written that way. Now, hopefully it'll make a bit more sense and there won't be that weird disconnect like it's out of date and all that. No, it isn't. It is perfect. You know why? Because we're alive. We should be dead. Stephen, thank you again. I love you all. Thank you for listening to me.